This notion of like a token-based, digital unit of account, in cryptocurrency and in blockchains, we're talking about digital bearer assets. So just like a physical note is a bearer asset,
Yep.
a digital token is a bearer asset. And we're talking about digital bearer assets that effectively, instantly, automatically exist everywhere that the internet exists at any moment in time. So if you've got an internet connection at the space station, it works there. It's, as I call it, blockchains are intergalactic money. But the bottom line is it exists everywhere the internet exists, and it's a bearer instrument, and that's profoundly powerful. And in the history of money, in the history of nation states, that's never existed. And this is just like a fundamental breakthrough innovation. And I think the lots of different metaphors. The genie's out of the bottle, right? The genie is out of the bottle in this. Non-sovereign digital currencies like Bitcoin have taken that genie out of the bottle as well. But that genie is out of the bottle, and I think it raises really profound questions for governments around the world. And it raises, on the one hand, these very profound questions about national security, about how law enforcement fights crime on the one hand, and on the other hand, around human freedom, human rights, financial privacy, and then somewhere in the middle, breakthrough innovation, which is if you've got a digital bearer asset and you can write code and it can be programmable on any device anywhere in the world, like, wow, what could you do with that? What could society, coming back to your society's ideas of money concept, what could society do with that? And so these are like really, I think, very, very profound questions. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on some of those dimensions. Sure. and how government should be thinking about this.
So you talked about in a digital format, money becomes intergalactic. So in space, it becomes ubiquitous. You can use it. Whereas fiat money is basically a local utilization. You can't use fiat in an online context. Well, but let's really expand our mind. Let's not just think about space, but let's think about time.
Sure.
If we go to a digital format that's ultimately programmable, we could actually program money to be used not just in our current time, but across time. So Absolutely. Think about I could today, if programmable money were available, whether that be stable coin or a central bank digital currency, it could be programmed to benefit my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I could program money today for use at other places in time. So the big breakthrough with the big idea here is we're creating money that can be used across space and across time. And that has never been possible. That is a big idea. And the United States has to be involved in that big idea. It's too big for us to sit on the sidelines and let the development of this be done elsewhere.
So that ties into, I think, a key question. I think a lot of times the discussions on this, they get kind of reduced down to, is this a payment system innovation issue? Or are we really just talking about a new federal payment system? And my view is that's an extremely narrow view of this. In some ways, like the ability to settle payments digitally over the internet, that's just going to be as ubiquitous as email, and that's just going to be the air we breathe. It'll be everywhere, and that's almost like a tiny issue here.
Absolutely.
It's that composability and programmability, and I guess ultimately, we have these blockchain networks, and there's the diverse number of these public networks, just like the public internet, which is, the World Wide Web is this public network. The internet email systems, this public network. No government controls those. No corporation controls those. They're just standards that are out there people can build on. And I think part of the attractiveness of fiat digital currencies and what's contributing certainly to some of the growth in stablecoins today as well is that innovation that can happen there. The idea you had, there's actually a protocol called the lock protocol. It's an Ethereum smart contract. Anyone can put their stablecoins through it, and they can configure all kinds of locking rules on money. And that's just out there, and you can put these Lego bricks together, and the openness of and the creativity that developers can bring. I think that's also a place where, again, the traditional financial system or traditional regulators, it's very uncomfortable to think about, like, hey, there's developers hacking together protocols that can do stuff with our money, but it's also a big part of the promise here.
Absolutely. It is the future. I mean, when the internet exploded, when the internet first became reaching a common public, no one could have anticipated some of the developments that have come about. I remember in the 1980s when someone who was developing one of the core technologies for the internet called asynchronous transfer mode told me about its application and explained it will allow computers to talk to computers. My attitude, well, what good is that? Well, what good is that is the ability to plan a vacation, order a taxi cab, and all the ramifications of it today, the ability to gather information, to communicate with people around the world. I don't think we yet can anticipate all the utilizations of digital money, but that shouldn't be the reason to stop us. That's got to be the reason to get us started.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I lots of good historical metaphors on that should inform this. And
the other reason, the real big reason is money is a carrier of values. Money that's why we started by talking about money being a social construct. Societies imprint their values on money. The dollar is attractive to a global audience because there's a presumption that unless you're, engaged in drug running or other illicit conduct, your activities with your dollar is your private activity. Yeah. It also carries the notion of free enterprise and the ability to assemble capital in a way that is most beneficial, and so free market economics. There's values built into a currency, and as China makes progress, tremendous progress in building a digital RMB, there's also an expectation that their values will be in that. I don't think there's a broad expectation that a digital RMB would be free from government surveillance.
Right.
At heart, the reason why we need to be on the front edge of this technology is to make sure those values that our society holds dear are imprinted in this new form of money. That's why the conversation can't be confined to government alone. That's why it's got to be a broad conversation between the public and the private, because we've got to work out what are those values, how do we write them into the future of money in a way that is both useful for our society, but societies who aspire to some of the values of our society can then utilize that as well, as opposed to the alternative, which may not be aspirational values built into the digital form of modern money.
Yeah.